Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody whose body isn't cooperating with her sex life. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners, nor sex therapists.
Or OBGYN/gynecologist.
Oh my God, doctors in any way, shape, or form. We both have BAs in English, people, so...
That's right. We are not professionals. We are not trains. We're not trains.
We're not trains either. Choo-choo.
We're not trains. Choo-choo. We're not trained in any of this, so please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings, so hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. Also, did you hear that moment earlier where I almost forgot the script, which was my name? That was
I did hear you not say your name, and I was like, okay, here we go.
Welcome to Just Break Up.
I could have to remind her again.
My name is Sierra DeMulder. All right, y'all. Today's letter comes to us from Anan, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from Loving and Struggling. Hi, I trust you both so much for balanced takes. My boyfriend, he, him, and I, she, her, are in an exclusive monogamous relationship and love each other so much. We've been dating for several years, but only a year close up used to be distanced. We've been struggling in our sex life, mostly because of my vulvar skin inflammation. Anything can set it off and makes my skin raw down there. Alcohol, tight clothes, my period, etc. This makes sex or any touch down there painful on random stretches, maybe for half of every month. He's expressed so delicately and kindly that he's very frustrated with our sex life. He wants sex often and doesn't want to feel restricted, but doesn't want to hurt me. He doesn't want to blame me, but he's healthy and always able to have sex, so I can tell it's my vaginal issues holding us both back. There's no immediate medical change that can be made. Have seen doctors. And our discussions around sex are always respectful, but so painful, tearful, and tense. I feel so guilty and want to have ongoing regular sexual experiences with him, but he's growing more afraid and restricted with every instance of inflammation. When I can't have sex, I'm able to shake it off and try again days later. When he can't climax, it makes him extremely physically frustrated with himself and distracted. Rarely, we're able to have amazing, comfortable sex together. He's not ethically comfortable with masturbation or me giving him oral to completion, so won't satisfy himself in between my flares. He's never struggled with this, and I can tell he's starting to catastrophize, while I believe my condition could improve. What can I do?
Oh, Anan, I'm so sorry that you are experiencing this and that, something that is outside of your control is so deeply impacting your relationship.
Yeah.
And let's just name the fact that so much about sex and bodies is so deeply tied to shame as well. So the idea that our bodies are doing something that they shouldn't be doing, that they're not working in the way that we think that they should be working, can cause us so much shame. And it sounds like that's happening for you a bit. And it also sounds like it's happening for your partner too.
Yes.
And we've talked on this podcast before about the ways in which different willingness, ability, desire for sex in differences in that sort of levels of that in relationships can cause so much consternation between the folks who are in it. And in so many ways, we are so ill-equipped to be able to talk about sex without all of that stuff just coming up to the surface immediately. So I just want to hold you in how challenging this is. I just want to hold you in how guilty you feel about the way in which your body is betraying you in so many ways, and the ways in which you feels like you are denying something that your partner so desperately wants. And all of that is so understandable in the ways that our little hearts and brains tell us about what sex is and what it means and how we should be performing in it. And so I want to hold you in the discomfort and pain of that, while also, I think Sierra and I are going to invite you into different ways of holding it, viewing it, dealing with it that maybe will cause a little bit less of this feeling of shame, discomfort, all of this consternation around it. Although none of what we're going to say is going to be a silver bullet to sort of get rid of all of the shame and weirdness that we've been taught about sex and relationships. Yeah. But we're going to get into that in just a second.
All right, my darling, thank you for trusting us with this question and for listening. I too just want to extend my compassion. This is a really tricky situation because we've got a lot of things happening on the table. First of all, we're talking about, a physical medical experience that you have little to no control over, right? Period. It's out of your hands, right? And that comes with its own baggage, the, guilt from that, the sense of helplessness, the sense of blame that comes with that, despite it not being your fault. We're also inviting to the table intimacy. This is a way in which you and your partner connect, and it's being disrupted by not just your physical condition, but I would say some limitations that your partner has put on physical intimacy. That is disrupting it, right? Those limitations, those ethical beliefs or whatever they are limiting the amount of connection that you can have physically with your partner. Mm-hmm. And like Sam said, sex and body stuff, it's all conflated for everybody. And this is really tricky. I want to briefly just nod at the fact that I think that this is more common than you think. If not your vulva inflammation being common, the idea that there are things that prevent us from living our best sexual life or whatever we want to say that is. There's just things preventing us from living our best life, whether that is chronic illness, pain, disability, stress, anxiety, depression, our medications, changing our libidos, mismatched libidos, there's so many things out there. So although this is particular to you and your relationship, I think that this issue is really common because what we're talking about is not just mismatched libidos, but it feels like something's in between you and this great sex that you could be having, right? Sure. If it just wasn't for this, and this happens to be your body. And so it makes a lot of sense why this could be turning into this tearful, tense, internalized thing. And that makes all of the sense in the world. And also I want to say to you, if no one has said this to you, or if you struggle to say this to yourself, this is not your fault. This is not a defect. This is an added hurdle it's probably really frustrating that you have to deal with, but you're not alone in this. Mm-hmm. And we know, Sam and I know, that you're doing your absolute best, that you're managing your symptoms and listening to your body. Good job. I just want to say, in any of the stress or tenseness that comes with this, I also want to say good job. I really fucking love that you said, when we can't have sex, I'm fine just shaking it off and trying again later. That's a great attitude. Mm-hmm. And I love that you're stopping when it hurts. I love that you've seen a doctor. I love that you have illustrated to me that you can talk to me simply and plainly about your body without disparaging it. Great job. I know this must be stressful, and I know this must require you to put extra labor into how you talk about yourself, how you talk to your partner, and how you treat your body. Mm-hmm. That all seems like extra challenging, and it can tell that you're putting that extra labor in. So good job. I'm proud of you. This must be tricky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this dynamic that you're describing around sort of different capacities for sex is a common thing that happens in relationships, and the way that you're responding to it is really common too. I think we've talked about this before, but when there's this mismatch in sort of capability around sex, then what happens is that the person who wants more sex feels guilty about pressuring the person who can't have sex as often, right? And internalizes some of that, internalizes it as rejection sometimes too, right? Like the idea of like, oh, you know, this means something about me as a sexual partner, my capability or my attractiveness or whatever it might be. And then the person who is less capable of having sex internalizes the guilt of not performing well enough for their partner, right? And that can happen with mismatched libidos where folks, you know, where one person wants to have sex and the other person doesn't. It can also happen in situations like this where one person is like physically capable of having more sex than the other person is for lots of different reasons. And so like this guilt that you both are feeling is like really understandable and I think really common across lots of different relationships where folks have this mismatch in their capabilities or their abilities to do it. So like I want to hold that. And I want to say that the thing that can be helpful for this is to not let this guilt that you both are feeling grow in the darkness of like not talking about it, right? Where we sort of take this stuff and we internalize it. And it sounds like you two are trying to have these conversations. And of course they're tense, right? Because so many of these conversations about sex and guilt and shame and bodies and all of that stuff are really tense and tearful. But you know, I want you all to accept the realities of what's happening in a way that allows you to like discuss what your options are in a meaningful way, right? And I want you all to be able to approach some of the sex that you're having with more levity than is currently happening. Because the other thing that happens is that often that sex becomes like so fucking serious.
So like, serious, so tense.
Right? It's like,
such high pressure,
what's
high
gonna
stakes.
go wrong?
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. You know, like the stakes feel like 10 million times higher than they actually are. And actually, what can often help with sex is about taking some of the pressure off and having sex in ways that allows us to approach it with levity, with fun, with an acceptance of the fact that like it doesn't have to look a particular way or be a particular way. Like we're not racing to orgasm. Like it's okay if we just like cuddle together naked, right? It's okay if we just take a shower together and like play around a little bit, right? Like lots of different ways that we can approach sex that again take some of this like performance anxiety out of it, which it sounds like both of you are experiencing in this moment. So acknowledging the fact that like maybe P and V sex is kind of off the table at this moment. What are ways, even if it's not masturbation or oral sex to completion, what are ways that you can be physically intimate with each other that can demonstrate your comfort with each other in ways that feel less high stakes than like we have to have sex in this way at this time with this amount of time, like all of those different like expectations that we place on yourself. I also just want to call attention to the fact that like one of the issues in this incompatibility in your sex life is not your body, but actually your partner's moral hangups around masturbation and oral sex to completion. And I want to create space for the idea that folks have different sort of understandings of morality around sex. But one of these conditions is physical and unchangeable, and the other one is flexible and in someone's head. I don't like, just gonna say it out loud to like really name what is happening here. And I think that there's an onus of responsibility that I think that your partner has in here to recognize the fact that like his ideal of sex is not available most of the time. And so if he is somebody who is looking for sexual intimacy with a partner, he is going to have to expand his understanding of what sex can look like and be like, right? And I say this about your partner. I also say this about a lot of us who have different ideas of what sex has to be.
100%.
And then get hamstrung because guess what? Like sex looks so different all the time and can look lots of different ways to lots of different people. And we've been taught a particular way of being and doing, but that doesn't mean that it's the right or only way of being or doing when it comes to sex.
Yeah. I'm interested in how your partner can practice flexibility in terms of flexing towards your physical limitations and meeting you where you're at. Don't get me wrong. I have compassion for both of you. I think this is stressful. Like Sam said, it makes sense that this is tense. But like Sam said, one of these things is immovable, right? One of these things is out of our control. And I'm not here to say you just need to learn how to like get used to masturbation, right? But I am curious. I am interested in where your boyfriend's compassion level is, because here's a great reminder for all of us. Compassion is in action, right? Like how is he flexing towards you to support you during this time? And I get it. You know, it's stressful when you want something physically and you can't have it all the time. Like, I'm not even trying to make a joke. Like, I don't know. It can make you feel stressed, whatever. And we're grown-ups here, right? And we have to be able to be creative. I'm not even like making like funny sex jokes here. I'm saying like we need to be creative when we meet people where they're at, when we meet ourselves where we're at. Like where's the creativity in this that
right.
falls outside of P and V, like Sam says. Because there's lots of things. There's lots of places on the body that can feel good, that aren't just your vulva. There are toys that feel good, that like, it's 2023. No shame in the sex toy game, right? Mm-mm. There's mutual masturbation. There's so much stuff. And I understand. How about this? I don't understand. I'm curious. About this ethical feelings against masturbation, but okay feelings against penis and vagina sex. Like there's lots of other places on the body that could feel good. There are lots of other things. I'm stumbling because I don't want to just be like, he's got to buck up and learn how to be creative. But
yeah, I would definitely not say that. That's a joke. I would say that.
Yeah. I was like,
I would definitely think that I do think that that he needs to understand that like bodies are different and function differently sometimes, and that like there's lots of ways to have sex that can be meaningful and fulfilling, and that don't. If this type of sex is unavailable and makes you both feel shitty, right, then we need to figure out a different way of having sex.
There we go. And if we honestly, we got like half an hour an episode like to talk about this, to muse about this. But if we were going to zoom out and we had to give you a one sentence answer, it would be like, it sounds like y'all are going to have to be creative and flexible in your definitions of intimacy. And that creativity and flexibility is going to have to come from both sides. If you want this intimacy to happen, if he wrote in, I would say the same thing. And I would say, this is like not meant as tough love. This is reality, right? This isn't meant to be like some feminist anthem either. Although I could make it that.
We could. Yeah.
It's just meant to be like, do you want this to change? Because you're the one that has to change. Like you two you have to do something differently. That all being said, I just want to take a moment to say this must be really stressful. I'm really glad you reached out. I'm sorry that you're struggling with this. Please continue to extend grace and care and compassion towards yourself, because this is not something that you can control. Because if it would, you'd be doing something about it.
True.
And I hope you find relief and some sort of consistent treatment soon. But until then, the sky's the limit. Sex doesn't have to look like penis in vagina. It can look like a billion different combinations of a billion different body parts or not body parts.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, my love. I hope that this helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
We love ya. All right, it's Friday, so that brings us to the blind date segment of the show. Every week, we like to shout out something that you love that we want to set you up with. And this week, we are sending you home with
a book called The Complete Enneagram, 27 Paths to Greater Self-Knowledge. It's by Beatrice Chestnut, which is the most wonderful name that I've ever heard in my entire life. I've had this book for a long time and spent a lot of time in it when I was doing a lot of like sort of self-understanding around what it means to be a 5. And for folks who don't know, the Enneagram is a sort of way of thinking or being that identifies that folks have, in general, have like particular wounds that kind of drive them to do the behavior that they do. Obviously, this posits that there are 9. I don't know that I totally agree with that, right? And I am healthily skeptical, I think, of a lot of the things about the Enneagram, but I also have known that it is like a really helpful tool that I've used with other people to help understand myself better and to like help me understand where people are coming from better. Sierra and I have talked a lot on this podcast about her being a 2 and me being a 5 and what that sort of means. I am returning to this book after a while because I have a new person in my life who is a type that I haven't experienced before, and have like come back to just really appreciate how much is in this book about all of the different ways that people kind of operate and think about things. And so if that's something that you're into, right, like I'm not trying to proselytize the Enneagram. If it's like not perfect for everyone, that's totally fine. But if it is something that you're interested in and you're looking for a good resource, if you're looking for a good resource to help you kind of understand all the different types, what they mean. And again, like it's been a super helpful tool for my own self-reflection. And also like Peter took the Enneagram and like now we have different conversations about like what's showing up for us because we have shared language around some of this stuff, which has been really helpful. So if you're interested in the Enneagram and digging into it more than just like what's online, I would definitely recommend this book. Again, it's called The Complete Enneagram, 27 Paths to Greater Self-Knowledge, and it is by Beatrice Chestnut, PhD. And again, just Beatrice Chestnut. It's just a beautiful name.
Dr. Chestnut. All right.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more content from us or if you would like ad-free episodes, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode as well as all of our episodes without ads. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship meme, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakup.com. Nope. justbreakuppod.com.
There it is.
Which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing all magical things by our good friends Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast. And remember, sometimes there are things outside of our control, and we often see 2 options. The first option is to internalize it, to say it's our fault. We're wrong. We're doing something wrong. We should carry this shame and guilt, and we should find a way to fix something outside of our control. And the other option is to see that it's outside of our grasp, and we can use creativity and compassion to problem solve around or on a new path, but we're not going to change that thing that's outside of our control. And if all else fails,
just break up.